Hello everyone, I'm Professor Johnson, and today we're going to start Chapter 1 talking about the study of life. Okay. So, first things first, we're going to ask ourselves, what defines life? Well, you can go up to anybody in your family and ask, what would they describe as what's alive? Well, would you describe a rock as being alive? Would you describe a worm as being alive? So that's why scientists have to describe and give definitions to things that are alive. So scientists came up with rules for things, and they describe these things to have properties of life. There's 8 properties of life, and things that they describe that are alive have to have these 8 properties, okay? Biology is the study of living organisms and their interactions with one another and their environments. All groups of living organisms share several key characteristics or functions, and these characteristics are used to define what is alive or not. Number 1, they have to have order. All living things have to have some sort of order to be described as being alive, okay? We are described as being alive, so we have some sort of order. So we actually have cells, and those cells combine together to make tissues. Our tissues combine together to make organs. Our organs combine together to make organ systems, and so forth and so forth. So there is some sort of order to us, okay? We do respond to stimuli, okay? So when you go up to a hot stove, you respond to the hot stove and pull your hand away right away. That is a response to a stimuli. We do reproduce. That is number 3 in the properties of life. We do adapt to certain things. We also grow and develop. We have a certain regulations, and we undergo homeostasis at all times in our life, okay? Homeostasis is the ability of an organism to maintain a constant internal condition. Okay, we do have a particular pH which we must maintain. Our blood has a very specific pH. We also maintain a specific body temperature as well. And our body is constantly processing energy at all times. Once again, these are all properties of life. Okay. These are all examples of properties of life that we're going to be going through, and these are all examples that you can find in your book as well. The leaves of this sensitive plant will instantly droop and fold when touched, okay? Also, a common plant that you all are familiar with is the plant that actually closes up when it's actually stimulated, Venus flytrap. You all are have commonly seen this on TV and things of that nature. That is a response to stimuli as well. This is a toad, which represents a highly organized organism. It has structure and consists of cells, tissues, organs, and organ systems, as I described earlier, which is an order that we have as well. Growth and development. As you guys can see here in these cute little kittens, they inherited genes from both parents and share many of the same characteristics as one another. Cute little kittens. These polar bears are able to maintain homeostasis and maintain constant warm body temperature within their bodies, even in very, very cold temperatures. As you guys know, they actually live in very cold environments, but they still maintain very warm internal body temperatures regardless, because of that really nice thick fur that they have on the outside. Right here is a really good example of energy processing that these California condors, they're an endangered species. These guys actually have a lot of energy and require a lot of energy to fly around and prey for food. Really, really good example of energy processing. We actually process a lot of energy, especially for those of you that actually like to work out. You process a whole lot of extra energy when you're working out you actually are creating a lot of extra ATP. So an example of energy processing. And we're also going to get into organizing or the organization of living things as well in 1.7 of your textbooks. So living things are highly organized and structured, following a hierarchy on a scale from small to large. The blank is the smallest and most fundamental unit of matter. So what do you guys think that is? You are correct. The atom is the smallest and most fundamental unit of matter. Okay? Atoms form blank. Okay? What do atoms form? Atoms form molecules. Okay? So two atoms put together, so we have an atom and another atom. They actually form molecules. Okay? So a blank is a chemical structure consisting of at least two atoms held together by a chemical bond. That is a macromolecule. Okay? Many molecules that are biologically important are blank. What do you guys think that one is? Give you guys a second. Okay, so we're still talking about macromolecules here. Many molecules that are biologically important are macromolecules. And an example of a macromolecule that is very, very important to us is DNA. DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. Very, very important. And here's a really, really good picture of deoxyribonucleic acid right here, held together really nicely by these hydrogen bonds going down its backbone right here in the middle. We'll get more into detail about this later on in the chapters. Here are lists. You're going to see levels of the life's organizational hierarchy from the smallest to largest, starting from the atoms and ending with the biosphere. It's a really, really good video. They make it into a really good song. You're going to see they go from atoms, molecules, and then so forth and so forth. Some people find it kind of cheesy. I think it's got a good charisma to it. Just watch that YouTube video and come back and join us back in lecture after you watch that video, okay? Alright, so life is organized in levels. So after you've watched the video, pretty sure you have them all memorized. You're going to need them memorized for the quiz and the lecture exams. But here they are once again. We have atom, which is the basic unit of matter. We have molecules, so two atoms put together, you make a molecule. So a molecule is composed of many atoms. We have organelles, which are structures that perform functions within a cell. Then you have cells, which is the smallest fundamental unit of structure that exists within cells and performs specialized functions. So remember, cells, smallest fundamental unit of a structure. Okay? These perform specialized functions. Okay? Then you have tissues, a group of similar cells carrying out the same function. Okay? Group of similar cells. That's what a tissue is. Then you have organs. So an example of organ might be your heart or your liver, your kidney, your pancreas. Okay? That's what an organ is. So formed of tissues operating together to form a common function. Okay? So your heart is a group of tissues formed together to pump out your blood throughout your entire cardiovascular system. Then your organ system. So your cardiovascular system. It's a higher level of organization, consists of functionally related organs together. Then your organism. It's me. I'm an organism. You're an organism. Okay? An individual living entity. You're an individual living entity. Your dog is an individual living entity. Your cat, individual living entity. Your little brother is an individual living entity. Okay? Population. All individuals living within a species, living within a specific area. So, the key about populations is it has to be a group of individuals that can interbreed and provide offspring that can actually provide offspring, viable offspring. So offspring that can actually produce viable offspring amongst themselves. So if you cannot interbreed amongst each other, then that would not be a population, okay? So that's the key with populations, okay? So if you had a mule and a horse in the same area, that would not be a population. It would have to be a horse and another horse that can actually provide viable offspring. That would be considered a population, okay? So population, interbreeding individuals that can provide viable offspring in a specific area, population. Then you have communities, a set of populations inhabiting a particular area. So an example would be a bunch of different, or a set of horses, a whole bunch of horses, and then let's say a whole bunch of rabbits over here, all within, let's say, one farm. That's a community. Okay. Then an ecosystem, living organisms and environment in which they live. So all the horses, all the rabbits, all in the farm. So it's like the living creatures and the non-living environment coexisting together, and the actual relations they have with one another. All the living environment and the non-living environment. So abiotic and biotic coexisting with one another. Then you have the biosphere, all ecosystems of the earth. So everything we mentioned, from atoms all the way down to biosphere, this is all life in organized levels, from the beginning all the way to the end. Carl Linnaeus, he is known as the father of modern taxonomy for good reason. Okay, he was the first one to propose the hierarchical system of the binomial nomenclature. What does that mean? Well, he was the one that came up with the term for the genus and species. Before that, nobody really had a universal way of identifying species. Okay, that would be like, I'm in Madagascar and you're in Africa, and you're trying to describe a worm to me as the maroon one that has the black speckled dots on its back, and I have no idea what you're talking about, because I'm trying to describe the exact same worm way over here on the other side of this country, and we don't know if we're talking about the same worm or not. So Carl Linnaeus came up with the genus and species, basically a universal way of identifying and talking about basically identifying and naming a species, so that we can talk about the same exact and identifying system from all the way across the countries, no matter where we are. Okay, so now we can actually go all the way down from kingdom, phylum, class, order, all the way down to genus and species, and all scientists all over the world can 100% guarantee we're talking about the exact organism that we intend to, okay? So, us as humans, we are Homo sapiens. That is our genus and species that we belong to, okay? Another example of a genus and species specific is Drosophila melanogaster. That is commonly known as a fruit fly, okay? It is a modern system of naming organisms using two unique names. And so the way you actually, there's rules to it, I'm sorry. So the way you would actually type this correctly would be, for example, as you can see right here, the genus is always going to be capitalized, as you can see right here, and species is always lowercase. When it is typed, it has to be italicized. If this was handwritten, it's the same rules. You would still capitalize the genus, still lowercase the species, but instead of italicizing it, you would underline it. That's the only difference. So handwritten, you underline it. If it's typed, you italicize it. Okay? The 8 levels in the hierarchical system, you will need to know these as well. I did abbreviate these right here down below. Alright, so let's go ahead going to show this. We're talking about domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. Alright, this is the most broadest of them all. Right here. The most broadest, which is the domain, all the way to the most specific, which is the species. So the broadest of them all would be domain eukaryote. Okay, because I could say that an organism belongs to domain eukaryote, but that could be anything. That could be a human, that could be yeast, that could mean a mushroom, that could be millions and millions of different organisms that belong to domain eukaryote. But then if you say Canis lupus, that means that you're specifically talking about a dogwood. Or if you say Homo sapien, that means you're specifically talking about a human being. Very, very specific. Okay, so that's the most broadest of them all to the most very, very specific of them all. Okay, the way I memorize these is, okay, it's a little saying that I have memorized. Let me go and change this to color so you guys can go follow it with me. It's dumb kings play chess on fuzzy green stools. That's just the way I memorize it. It's a little saying. It stuck with me because I just kind of visualized it. But dumb kings play chess on fuzzy green stools. That'll help you all out because in 102 as well, they have you, they test you on those. So you do want to memorize that hierarchical level of those. Like I said, just the way I memorized it. Dumb kings play chess on fuzzy green stools. But it is helpful to kind of get those acronyms and get those memories and get visuals of those guys. But if it helps you out, great. If you can come up with your own saying, even better. Okay? Alright, so these are some other images that represent the different domains. Okay, you do want to be able to identify which domains each one of these will fall into. Okay, there are 3 different domains. The different domains we're going to be talking about are going to be domain eukaryote, domain bacteria, and domain archaea. Okay, domain archaea and domain bacteria are similar in the fact that these domains do not have nucleuses. Okay, they do not have a membrane enclosed nucleus, okay, that has DNA enclosed inside of it. Domain eukaryote does have an enclosed nucleus that does have DNA inside of it. Okay, that's the only difference. Okay, so domain eukaryote would be, for examples here, C and D, right here. These would be belonging to domain eukaryote. These would have enclosed DNA inside nucleuses. Domain eukaryote. Domain bacteria and domain archaea would be A and B right here. They are prokaryotes. And by the way, pro means before nucleus, okay? Prokaryotes, before nucleuses came about, before enclosed nucleuses were developed. That's pro-nucleus, before the nucleuses came about. And then, of course, eukaryotes, that means after the nucleuses were developed. That's what we are, okay? They're more complex organisms. That's where the sunflower and the lion are actually eukaryotes. Phylogenetic tree. Here we go right here. Phylogenetic tree was constructed by microbiologist Carl Woese, okay, using genetic relationships to show how similar they are to one another. Okay, so like we were just saying, bacteria and archaea, they are pro the nucleus, before the nucleus came about, but as time went on and on, they actually discovered that domain archaea is actually evolutionarily more related to eukaryotes than they are to bacteria. So as you can see right here, domain archaea is actually branching off closer related to domain eukarya than it is to bacteria. That's why they have this branching off similar right here, closer to us than it is to bacteria. So that was after the fact. So the books back in the day, they had these two guys branching off closer together, but now, lo and behold, they actually discovered that it is actually more closely related to us. So that's why this branching off of this phylogenetic tree is closer to us than it is to the bacteria. But as you can see, we all branch off from one common ancestor. That's what this branch means. Is actually showing that we all come from one common ancestor at the end of the day down here. Okay, so there's three whole domains: domain bacteria, domain archaea, domain eukarya. Okay, once again, domain bacteria, prokaryotes, meaning no nucleus; domain archaea, prokaryotes, meaning no nucleus; and then domain eukarya, meaning there is actually nucleuses here, domain eukaryotes. Okay, the only difference between bacteria and archaea is actually archaea are extremophiles, meaning they can actually live in the most extreme of extreme conditions. These guys live in hot springs, the hottest of hottest hot springs. They can live in extremely hot conditions and extremely cold conditions. They're very unique in that sense. So as you guys can see here, when compared side by side to one another, they look almost identical as far as these things go right here when they're side by side, as far as cells like nucleus, unicellular. So they look almost identical on paper, but these extremophiles, they can live where nothing else can live. Domain archaea, they're the extremophiles. They're the ones that can go hot springs and the coldest cold weather too. Here we go. Here's the domain that we fall into, domain eukaryotes. Okay, so it's going to be also containing 4 different groups. Okay, so these are going to have multicellular organisms and rarely unicellular organisms, which means, of course, they have one cell or a whole bunch of cells, multicellular organisms, which is what we have. Okay, they have 4 groups, like I just said: Protists, Animalia, Kingdom Plantae, or plants, and then Kingdom Fungi. Okay, here are your protists right here. They're going to be multicellular. They can be autotrophs, which means they produce their own food, or heterotrophs, which means they're going to sit there and eat other organisms for food, which is what we do. We eat other things to provide our energy we need. There's Kingdom Animalia, which are animals. They're heterotrophs. They're eating other organisms for food. Kingdom Plantae, multicellular autotrophs. Now, plants, as you all know, they undergo photosynthesis, which means that they actually are the ones that are providing all the other organisms in the world energy. Okay, they're the only ones that are actually doing the chemical digestion to provide everybody else energy for food. And Kingdom Fungi. Kingdom Fungi, most of them are multicellular, and they're heterotrophs. They actually are going to sit there and digest other organisms for food as well. But once again, Kingdom Eukarya have 4 different groups: Protists, Animalia, Fungi, and Planta. You all know biology is a broad spectrum. A lot of you in this course are not just going down one route. Some of you are going to be doctors, some of you are going to be nurses, some of you are going to be archaeologists, some of you are going down the zoology path, some of you are going down what path? Mathematician path. Some of you are going down the anesthesiologist path. Some of you are going down the mathematician path. Some of you are going down, you guys are going down hundreds and hundreds of different paths that I have not even touched on. Okay, so biology is a requirement for tons of different paths. Chemistry, sorry if I didn't mention you all, because you guys are all very important. So sorry if I missed your path, but biology is one of those requirements because it is needed, just like all the other past requirements are needed, as a foundation because of how much broad spectrum it touches on, okay? Because it's needed in paleontology, microbiology, zoology, botany, and all these other sub-disciplines that I mentioned, okay? Paleontology, they're going to be studying the fossils to study life's history, because as you all know, history repeats itself. Microbiology studies the structure and functions of microorganisms. Zoology studies the different animals. Botany is going to be studying the plants, okay? All of these are very, very important for any kind of discipline that you're going to be studying in the near future, okay? Forensic scientists, they're going to be working on studying DNA extractions, such as you guys see here in your textbook, as here in the U.S. Army Criminal Investigation Laboratory. I've worked with toxicologists before. Amazing work that they do. And you guys know DNA, important to know what it stands for, deoxyribonucleic acid. Okay. Biologists may also choose to study Escherichia coli, E. coli, bacterium that is a normal resident of our digestive tract, but which also sometimes is responsible for disease outbreaks. I know some of you have been hearing, for example, of Panera Bread, that the outbreak that they're having because of the lettuce that is actually have a lot of bacterium that is causing a lot of people to be very, very sick at this moment. Okay, back in October of 2015, they actually had an E. coli outbreak at Chipotle. It made a lot of people very, very sick. Well, who do you think does all those studies and actually figures out where those outbreaks are coming from and all that? Biologists. That's where biology is very, very important. A lot of the fundamental work is super important to understand. Whether you're going down to be study to become a biologist or not, it's good to know all these fundamentals for your own well-being in the future. Okay. Also, some further fields you might be going into. Very important to know biology once again for those reasons: astronomy, biology, computer science, geology, logic, physics, chemistry, mathematics. Love computer science. Very, very cool field to learn and study. Curiosity and inquiry are the driving forces for the development of science, okay? Scientists seek to understand the world and the way it operates. There's two methods of logical thinking that are used. There's inductive reasoning and deductive reasoning, okay? So Francis Bacon is credited for being the first to document the scientific method. If you all have done scientific project when you were in 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, you all have done the scientific method. A hypothesis, coming up with a procedure, conclusion, methods, all that good stuff, okay? So Francis Bacon is the one that have come up with that procedure, so you can thank him for it, okay? Basic science is a pure science that seeks to expand knowledge regardless of the short-term application, regardless. So it's knowledge for knowledge's sake, period. Applied science or technology aims to use science to solve some real-world problems. So kind of like solving third world hunger of some sort. So here is his work and the application of it. So you can actually see it from the beginning to the very end, what Sir Francis Bacon actually thought of and his work. Human Genome Project is actually 13 years in the making, finally completed in 2003. Okay, a lot of work was put into this, as you can imagine. 13 years. Can you imagine working on something for 13 years? It's a lot of work. Okay, finally complete. So they actually have the entire human genome makeup. So they actually know every single gene, every single kind of gene that would make up an entire human being. Took a long time to do, but they have it. Last but not least, here is an intraspecific competition versus an interspecific competition. So what is what? Intra is within the same species, so that would be me and you against one another. Okay, that would mean, okay, if I had you all going against each other in the classroom for extra credit points, that's what interspecific competition is. Interspecific competition is within different species. So that would mean, let's say I had a piece of hamburger in the classroom and that's all we had left to eat. And it was you against a dog. And you guys had a fight for it and it was fight to the finish. And that's interspecific competition within different species. This is a little practice quiz to just practice your knowledge. And that's the end of chapter 1. Hope you guys enjoyed this and get to studying. See you guys next time. Have a good one. These stand for the domain, the kingdom, the phylum, class,